Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. With respect to Central Board of Film Certification, which of the following statements are correct? It is a statutory body under the Information and Broadcasting Ministry. Films can be exhibited to the public only after they have been certified by the CBFC. Films are certified into four categories in India. An applicant aggrieved by the decision of CBFC can file an appeal with the Film Certification Appellate Tribunal. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to CBFC. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, yes, it is a statutory body under the Information and Broadcasting Ministry. So the first statement is right. When you look into the second statement, it reads films can be exhibited to the public only after they have been certified by the CBFC. This statement is once again right. What does this mean? It means that a movie can only be released in the theaters after permission is granted by the CBFC. It is also called as the censor board. Why is it called as the censor board? That is because let's assume for a moment there is one of the scenes or there are a couple of scenes as well. This is not meeting the ethos of the society, or the CBFC feels that this should not be going for the visual experience of the people. In that case, it orders for the cut of that particular scene or a series of scenes, which is why it is also called as the censor board. So the objective of the film certification is to make sure that the filmmakers are responsible and also sensitive to the standards and the values of the society. In case it is violating the sovereignty and integrity of the country, state security, friendly relations with foreign nations, against public order, against decency, involves defamation or contempt of court, likely to incite the commission of any offense, the censor board may also ask that filmmaker to cut that particular scene as well. Now looking into the third statement, films are certified into four categories in India. Yes, this statement is right. What are these four categories? Unrestricted but with a parental discretion advisory for children under 12 years. Then it is adult, yes, only for a special class of persons. So the third statement is also right. When you look into the fourth statement, an applicant aggrieved by the decision of the CBFC can file an application with the Film Certification Appellate Tribunal. This was right up until 2021, but now the appeal directly goes to the High Court. With Film Certification Appellate Tribunal abolished in 2021, appeals can only be made in a High Court. So right now we do not have an appellate tribunal. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to Agastya Kondam. It is situated in Nayar Wildlife Sanctuary in the Western Ghats. Agastya Kudam is a part of Agastya Malai Biosphere Reserve, which lies on the border between Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The Tamirabarani River originates from the Agastya Kudam peak. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Agastya Kudam, which happens to be one of the highest peaks in Kerala. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section which is the highest peak in Kerala. Agastya Kudam happens to be one of the highest peaks, but which is the highest is what you have to put on the comment section. When you look into the statements, where is it present? Yes, it is present in Western Ghats and happens to be one of the peaks in the Western Ghats. And this peak is part of the Agastya Malai Biosphere Reserve. So the first statement reads, it is situated in Nayar Wildlife Sanctuary in Western Ghats. It is correct, and it is part of Agastya Malai Biosphere Reserve along the border of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. This is also right. And remember, we have one of the perennial river which is called as Tamirabarani, which originates from the eastern side of this peak and flows into Tirunelveli district of Tamil Nadu. So the third statement is also right. So all the three statements are right, and that is why the answer to this would be 1, 2 and 3. This article speaks about one of the observatory called as the Agastya Observatory. This was established by Scottish meteorologist John Allen Brown, who used the facility for recording magnetic and meteorological observations in tandem with the Thiruvananthapuram Astronomical Observatory. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to quasi-crystals, which of the following statements are correct? Quasi-crystals have been used in surgical instruments, LED lights and non-stick frying pans. They have poor heat conductivity, which makes them good insulators. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is both. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the quasi-crystals. Let us try and understand what are these quasi-crystals. This happens to be a structure that is ordered, but it is not periodic. So in a crystal, the atoms are arranged in a pattern that periodically repeats itself. But when it comes to quasi-crystals atoms, they are arranged in a pattern that, yes, it does repeat itself, but at an irregular intervals. This is the major difference between a crystal pattern as well as the quasi-crystal pattern. So basically, in crystals, the atoms are arranged in a pattern that periodically repeats itself, but in quasi-crystals, the atoms are arranged in a pattern that repeats itself at irregular yet predictable intervals. Hundreds of quasi-crystals with different symmetries have now been made in lab. Another question they can ask you in prelims is whether it is lab made or it can also be found naturally. For this, what we also have is an answer. Quasi-crystals were discovered in the lab in 1982. So it clearly clarifies that it can be manufactured or produced in the labs, and at the same time, Paul Stedent and others reported finding the first natural quasi-crystal in 2009 as microscopic grains in a piece of Kairak meteorite in the Kairak mountains of Russia. So it can be produced in the laboratory settings, and it is also found naturally as well. What are the applications of this particular quasi-crystals? Non-sticking frying pans were among the first application of the quasi-crystals. Why? Owing to the alloys low friction, high hardness and low surface reactivity, and as a result these quasi-crystals have been employed and used in surgical instruments, LED lights and non-stick frying pans. So the non-stick frying pans were the first applications of the quasi-crystals. Other applications include steel hardened by these small quasi-crystal particles is also used as needles for acupuncture and surgery, dental instruments as well as razor blades as well. Other potential applications include selective solar absorbers for power conversion, broad wavelength reflectors, and bone repair and prosthesis applications where biocompatibility, low friction, and corrosion resistance are required. These are some of the applications with respect to the quasi crystals. Now let's look into the next practice question. Who was the author of Satyarth Prakash? Dayanand Saraswati, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Mahatma Gandhi, Raja Ram Mohan Roy. The answer to this is Dayanand Saraswati. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference to the Indian Express article. So this article here is speaking about Dayanand Saraswati. He was born Mool Shankar Tiwari. Dayanand was a prolific reformer of the Hindu religion. He was born into a well-to-do family to a tax collector named Karanchi Lalchi Kapadia and his wife Yashoda Bai. He learned Sanskrit and the Vedas in his childhood. He founded the Arya Samaj on April 7, 1875. So who founded Arya Samaj? It is Maharshi Dayananda Saraswati. Through this reform movement, he stressed on one God and rejected idol worship. He also advocated against the extol positions of the priests in the Hinduism. He also opposed multiplicity of castes. Arya Samaj led a prolonged movement against untouchability and advocated the dilution of caste distinctions as well, and he wanted complete annihilation of the caste. Dayanand Anglo-Vedic Trust and Management Society in Lahore in 1886 was an attempt to unite Samaj and its activities. He wrote many books. His major contribution is Satyartha Prakash. Other books include Sanskara Vidhi, Rigved Bhashyam, so on and so forth. People he inspired include Shamji Krishnavarma, M.G. Ranade, V.D. Savarkar, so on and so forth. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. The repo rate is the rate at which other banks borrow from the Reserve Bank of India. A value of 1 for Gini coefficient in a country implies that there is perfectly equal income for everyone in its population. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is one only. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2007. So what is the repo rate? Repo rate is the rate at which commercial banks borrow from the RBI. So the repo rate is the rate at which banks borrow from the RBI. This statement is right. But when you look into the second statement, it is wrong. Why? That is because a value of 0 indicates perfect equality and 1 indicates perfect inequality. What is the option speaking about? It says value of 1 in a country implies perfect equal income. This is a wrong statement. So the answer to this would be A. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is World Hindi Conference. The World Hindi Conference is also called as the Vishwa Hindi Sammelan. This is the world conference on the Hindi language. This happens to be a major event organized every 3 years by the Government of India under the Ministry of External Affairs. The first World Hindi Conference was inaugurated back in the year 1975 under the leadership of Indira Gandhi ji. So it was Indira Gandhi ji who first opened this particular conference, and where was it held? It was held in the city of Nagpur. All these pointers are very important from the preliminary examination point of view. As of now, we have had about 11 World Hindi conferences that have been organized in various countries, and now what we have is the 12th World Hindi Conference, which will be organized in Fiji. What is the theme for this year is what you have to put on the comment section. Why is the World Hindi Conference held? Hindi happens to be the first language of around 430 million people around the world. Apart from India, the language is also spoken in Nepal, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Fiji as well as Mauritius. And so the World Hindi Conference is held every 3 years primarily to spread awareness about the leading scholars as well as the contributors to the language, and also make sure that these people further add value to the language of Hindi. It will further have people from different countries, Hindi writers, Hindi scholars, laureates from different parts of the world who also come up to this particular conference, discuss and also contribute to the language as well. If you look into the data, according to United Nations report of 2020, Fiji had a population of about 8,96,000. About 30% of the Fiji people have Indian origin as well, and most of them also know Hindi language as well, and Fiji language is also one of the official languages of Fiji, and the constitution of Fiji ensures that Hindi would be protected in Fiji, which is why it is being conducted in the country of Fiji. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it for today. All the best.